So this morning I want to talk a little bit about the possibility of a coming coup in Russia to overthrow Vladimir Putin. But before I do that, I want to take some time and dispel Sergei Lavrov's old Russian lie that Jews are somehow anti-Semitic and that Hitler had Jewish blood. Now that lie has been passed around, ironically, by a bunch of neo-Nazis. If they claim that Hitler had Jewish blood, then why do they love him? It's crazy. Anyway, on Reuters, Russia says Israel supports neo-Nazis in row over Ukraine. May the 3rd, Russia's foreign ministry accused Israel on Tuesday of supporting neo-Nazis in Ukraine, escalating a row that began when Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed Adolf Hitler had Jewish origins. Israel said on Monday that Lavrov's comments was an unforgivable falsehood that tried to minimize the horrors of the Holocaust, the slaughter of 6 million European Jews, and other minority groups by Nazi Germany. Leaders from several Western nations denounced Lavrov, who's been asked how Russia could be pursuing its stated goal of denazifying Ukraine when President Volodymyr Zelensky himself is a Jew. Well, Volodymyr Zelensky, about three, maybe 4 weeks ago, was seen wearing the cross on his chest. I don't know how he could be a Jew if he's wearing a cross. I'll find it. I'll see if I can find it for you. Because no Jew, let me repeat myself, no Jew would ever wear a cross. Ever. Okay. Right here. There it is. Now, some people will say, oh, it's a Nazi symbol. Would you like to see some more Nazi symbols that are crosses? Let's see. Nazi crosses. You got the Iron Cross. All right. Let's see if we can find some more. The Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. I don't want to get too far into this because this is a whole nother subject matter. These are all crosses, including the swastika. And they're all the mark of the beast, which I, in many videos over a year ago, dedicated a lot of time to show everyone that the cross is the mark of the beast, the emblem of the beast. So, no Jew would be caught wearing a cross anywhere on himself. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Why he did it is because he's putting his Gentileness above any Jewishness that he has. And as I have said many times before, there are no righteous people in this fight between Russia and Ukraine. Now, leaders of several Western nations denounced Lavrov, who has been asked how Russia could be pursuing its stated goal of denazify. Oh, I just read that. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that Israel Foreign Minister Yair Lapid's comments were anti-historical and explained to a large extent why the current Israeli government supports the neo-Nazi regime in Kiev. I will tell you why Israel supports the government in Kiev. It is because they are compelled to do so by their overlords in the United States of America. In fact, we had congressmen threatening Israel that if they did not take sides, that foreign aid would be removed from them. Now, he claimed that even Hitler had Jewish roots. So we'll address this too. Did Adolf Hitler have Jewish roots? Sergei Lavrov's claims about Nazi leader debunked and Israel's reaction. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov has claimed that Adolf Hitler had Jewish blood by Sarah McCann. There has been worldwide condemnation. I hope this is not... I hope there was no audio interrupting me here. There has been worldwide condemnation after Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that Adolf Hitler had Jewish blood. The comments were made as Lavrov defended Russia for invading Ukraine to denazify the country, even though Ukraine's president Volodymyr Zelensky is Jewish. And of course, and as I'm saying right now, I am questioning his Jewishness because no Jew would ever wear a cross. Period. Israel has called Lavrov's comment unforgivable and urged Russia to apologize. Hitler, who led the Nazi Party in Germany, was responsible for the murder of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust and the Second World War. Lavrov made the comments days after Yom HaShoah, Israel's Holocaust Remembrance Day. Here's everything you need to know about what Sergei Lavrov said. In an interview with the Italian media, Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that Hitler had Jewish blood. He made the remarks to defend Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which President Putin claimed was to denazify the country, hitting out at President Zelensky's Jewish heritage. Lavrov says, so what if Zelensky is Jewish? The fact does not negate the Nazi element in Ukraine. And let me remind everybody that yes, the Azov Regiment is a neo-Nazi group in Ukraine. So is the Sparta Brigade in Russia a neo-Nazi group. So what we have here with Russia is the pot calling the kettle black. I could be wrong, but Hitler also had Jewish blood. That Zelensky is Jewish means absolutely nothing. Wise Jewish people say that the most ardent anti-Semites are usually Jews. Well, of course, that is a damn lie. The comments were made only a few days after Yom HaShoah, Israel's Holocaust Remembrance Day. Does Hitler have Jewish ancestry? Historians have yet to find evidence that suggests Hitler had Jewish ancestry. Questions about Hitler's ancestry often come up due to his father, Alois, being illegitimate. Alois's mother worked for a Jewish family, but there is no evidence to suggest that she was Jewish or Alois's father was Jewish. The claim that Hitler had Jewish ancestry is rooted in anti-Semitism, as it is often used to reframe Jewish people as the perpetrators of the Holocaust. And only Christians would think of doing something like this. Now, just to remind everybody, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, you may want to read this, started in Russia, started in Imperial Russian Orthodox Russia. And let me remind you that this conglomeration of lies, fables, was instrumental in the destruction of 6 million Jews by the Nazis. So the seed, you had one seed was planted by the Russians, and another seed was planted by the United States of America in Nazi Germany to destroy 6 million Jews. Now, I have plenty of videos in the past to look at. If you want to do some research about America's role in the Holocaust, you might want to, you can go, I have a vast library of videos that you can search, and you will find them. I quote publications by Edwin Black. If you're not aware of who he is, you might want to get yourself acquainted with his writings. Okay? The Protocols of the Meetings of the Learned Elders of Zion is a fabricated anti-Semitic text purported to describe a Jewish plan for global domination. And of course, that conspiracy theory is alive and very well here in the United States of America. The hoax was plagiarized from several earlier sources, some not anti-Semitic in nature. It was published in Russia in 1903. Translated into multiple languages and disseminated internationally in the early part of the 20th century, it played a key part in popularizing belief in an international Jewish conspiracy. And the idea that some were not anti-Semitic in nature, that is also a damn lie. Distillations of the work, remember, published in Russia in 1903, and guess what happened? It spread to Germany. Distillations of the work were assigned to some German teachers as if factual, to be read by German school children, kind of like transgenderism is being taught in schools in the United States of America today. And of course, teachers, without question, are going ahead with it to their own destruction. Read by German school children after Nazis came to power in 1933. Despite having been exposed as fraudulent by the British newspaper The Times in 1921 and the German Frankfurter Zeitung in 1924. It remains widely available in numerous languages in print, on the internet, and continues to be presented by neo-fascist fundamentalists and anti-Semite groups as a genuine document. It has even been described as probably the most influential work of anti-Semitism ever written. And where did it begin? Imperial Orthodox Churchianity, Russia. Orthodox Christianity, Russia. That's where it started. So Russia, you are just as responsible for the Holocaust as the United States of America. Now, so here is an article. Kremlin coup, rumors growing in Moscow. Disgruntled generals join FSB looking to oust Putin and end Ukraine war. Rumors are swirling in Moscow that a number of former generals and the KGB officials are preparing to oust Russia's President Vladimir Putin and plan to end the war in Ukraine, which is increasingly seen across Russia as a strategic mistake and, above all, an economic disaster. The top of Putin's former employer, the Russian Security Service, FSB, is said to be so frustrated about the lack of military progress in Ukraine that it has reached out to a number of generals and former army officials, according to various analysts and local media sources, in particular a group called the Siloviki, which comprises of former FSB officers who are active in Russian politics, is said to be pushing hard to replace Putin, together with former officers from the GRU, KGB, and FSO, and other intelligence units. An idea a coup may be increasingly likely is further strengthened by social media activity across Russia and Eastern Europe, which has gone into overdrive in the last 24 hours. When was this dated? May 4th. Moreover, analysts in and outside of Russia have all said all signs are there that Putin will face a coup soon. The Russian president is reportedly very worried and has tightened security in and around the Kremlin. Does it matter? It matters a lot, says Russian security expert Andrei Solatov told the Center for European Policy Analysis. The Russian president has been bracing for a coup for some weeks and has faced fierce criticism over his special operations in Ukraine and has purged around 150 of his spies over constant failure. And then talks about the growing tension between FSB and Kremlin. Now, what if there was a coup in Russia? And what if the new leader of Russia? There are all kinds of different narratives swirling around. Another one is that Putin has cancer and has to go into surgery and is going to let the most radical of his generals take charge. And of course, the other one is this particular rumor here. So I asked the question, what if there is a coup? And the new guy says it was wrong what Vladimir Putin did, and in fact, we're going to put him on trial for war crimes. What if that happened? Oh, the world would say, yay, 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 peace. Peace. They would. Now, concerning the Christian narrative of some sort of peace deal between, as the Christians say, the Antichrist and Israel, I have always called that absolute nonsense. That Israel, I have said that Israel in the last days is not going to be deceived, will no longer be deceived, but it will in fact be saved by the Moshiach, whom the Christians call the Antichrist. So the Christian narrative concerning when they shall say peace is a false narrative. I even pointed this out when I did videos showing that Donald Trump's peace plan of the century that he negotiated between the Arabs and Israel should fit the Christian narrative of him being the Antichrist, as they say. And of course, I laughed them to scorn because they, the same people who claimed that this very event, that the Antichrist, as they say, would be the mediator. And it was their own guy. Did they call him that? No. I've done several videos about that. So when they shall say peace and safety, that's the Gentiles, because they are fighting with each other. As soon as they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them. Now, there's a whole lot of ways to look at this. One in particular is this. That the West and the East start firing nukes at each other, and then Moshiach comes to bring in all Israel. Or it could be that just before they start firing nukes, they fire nukes at each other and then stop and make a peace treaty between the two groups of Gentiles. And then the Moshiach comes to save Israel. Or it could be that the fightings in Russia and Ukraine, it's not just Russia and Ukraine, folks. You got the whole world involved in this, the whole European world and the United States involved in this. If it would suddenly stop right now, the war would suddenly stop, there was a coup. Alright? There was a coup, there'd be a coup in Russia before the nukes start flying. And they started, we're going to make peace. We're going to make an everlasting peace. We're not going to let it get to nuclear, the possibility. We got so close to nuclear war, we're not going to let this happen. And then the Moshiach comes to Israel. Then the nations come against Israel, the Moshiach, and end up fighting with each other, lobbing nukes at each other. Which seems fairly plausible when you read Ezekiel 38 and 39. So if there is a coup in Russia, and I'm not saying there's going to be, I have no idea, but if there is a coup in Russia and they put in a leader who does not want war with Ukraine, and nations around the world start saying peace, then you'd better watch out. You'd better watch out. Because it is written. I think we'll go to Psalm 69. Try not to forget the location of that one. This is where Paul gets his in 1 Corinthians 5, verse 3. Verse 72, no. Alright, it's in verse 22. Let their table become a snare before them. And let shalom, or peace and safety, be the bait, the lure, the snare. Now this originally happened to Israel, but everything that happens to Israel is going to happen to the Gentiles too. Now, who gave him gall for his meat? Was it the Jew or was it the Romans? You know the answer to that. It was the Romans. And in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Who did that? That was the Roman soldiers. So this actually applies to then the Gentiles. Let their table be a gin, a bird trap. Let their table be a bird trap. You saw Vladimir Putin's great big table. In their face. And peace be the snare. Let their eyes be darkened that they see not. Well, because they chose to worship graven images, as both Peter and Paul warned against, they were handed over to great delusions that they might believe the lie. The Gentiles. Let their eyes be darkened that they to see loins and continually shake. So the eyes be darkened so they'll see very little. Pour out your indignation upon them, and let your wrathful anger take hold on them. Let their habitation, let their encampment, let their battlement be desolate, and dwell in tent. They persecuted, they smote. They recount pain of those who they wounded, who they killed. Add iniquity, punishment, on punishment. Remember, that great whore, Rome, will be rewarded double for her works. So this is do unto her double according to her works. Okay? Abolish them from the book of life. Abolish them from the book of life, and let them not be written with the righteous. So, now, with context, we go to 1 Thessalonians. I think it's 1 Thessalonians. But at times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of Jehovah's wrath so comes as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as a travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Well, see, this happened to the Jews in 70, the year 70 on the Roman calendar. And as I showed you in my last video, there will also be the tribulation upon the Gentiles. We'll go look at Luke 21. And And I see you, you folks on BitChute. I see what you're saying. I see what you're doing. It's not going to change what I'm doing here. Has no effect on me whatsoever. But it will affect you and your future. Be warned. All right. So we have the destruction of Jerusalem right here. Even King James knows this. Why is it that your preachers don't? So this was for Israel. Let the snare that was on Israel, as Paul pointed out in Romans 11. We'll make the connections here. And yes, I know that some Jews are still very angry at Paul about this, but it doesn't change facts. And they don't want to talk about what Paul said in the latter part of the same chapter. All right, so he says this. In verse 7, what then? Israel has not obtained that which it seeks for, but the election still has obtained it, and the rest were blinded. All right? Just like it said in, was it Psalm 69 verse 22. Okay, the rest that happened to Israel, but it also happens, it's going to happen at the end, when the time of the Gentiles comes to the end, it's going to happen to the Gentiles. The rest were blinded in that particular generation. Just as is written, Jehovah has given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day. And David said, let their table be made a snare. Psalm 69 verse 22. And a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their neck. Then does he stop there? No. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Jehovah forbid. Both Jews and Gentiles ignore this. The Jews hold what was previously said against Paul. They hold this against Paul, this section right here, and they refuse to read the rest of it because they want to hold a grudge against Paul. The Christians refuse to read this part on down because they want to hold a grudge against the Jews. And because of this, they are both eyes are darkened. Both of them are blind. One because of being angry at Paul, and the other one for hating the Jews. Unbelievable, huh? You'll never catch a preacher. You'll never catch a Christian preacher reading verses 11 through 36. Won't happen. Why? Because they hate the Jews. Now, if the stumbling, the misstep of Israel be the riches, the wealth of the world today, which is Satan's world, and the diminishing of them, the punishment of them being the riches of the Gentiles, how much even more their fullness, even more than the Gentiles. For I speak to you Gentiles, I am the apostle of the Gentiles. I magnify my office, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are of my flesh in that generation, and might save some of them of that generation. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, and that's temporary, because as you can plainly see, Paul warns the Gentiles that if they disobeyed, like the Jews did, they will receive exactly the same reward that the Jews of that generation did. Destruction of their city and the dispersion of their people. What shall the receiving of them Israel be but life from the dead? The promise of resurrection of the dead is guaranteed for Israel. Because, and here's why, if the first fruit is holy, if Yehoshua is holy, then so is the lump, Israel. And if the root is holy, so are the branches, all 12 branches. And if some of the branches currently are broken off, and you being a wild olive were grafted in among them, jointly, partaking jointly of the root and the fatness with the branches of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. But as I have told you, you Christians, year in, year out, for on YouTube for 7 years, but before that, before I started YouTube channel, long before that, boast not against the branches, because if you boast, you're boasting against the root, because it says the root, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you, so you're boasting against the root. Not only did you boast against the root, you changed the name of the root from Yehoshua to Jesus, so you would not have to hear or say the Hebrew name, the name with Jehovah's name in it. You hated so much the name of Jehovah that both Catholic and Protestant excoriated the Shem HaMephoresh, as you will find out if you bother to read Judensau. This right here. They bastardized the name, the holy name, right here. You not just you Lutherans, all you Protestants. And that's the reason why you use the word God instead of Jehovah. Because you hate the Shem HaMephoresh. You bastardized his name. And your father, the devil inside of Martin Luther, claimed that the holy name is inside the bowels of a sow. And being a Protestant, you approve of that kind of speech. And as a result, salvation will be taken away from you. Because it is impossible for anyone to be saved without the name Jehovah. Impossible. I'm just showing what your religions did, and if it began with the Catholics, even before 1230, but the Judensau thing started with the Catholics at 1230. So both branches of Western Christianity bastardized the name, the Shem HaMephoresh, the explicit name. And since you did, not only did you boast against the branches, you blasphemed the name of Jehovah. You blasphemed the Shem HaMephorash. You did much worse than what Paul warned you not to do. Far, far, far worse you did. He said, be high-minded, be not high-minded, but fear, because if not God, but Jehovah spared not the natural branches in the year 70 on the Roman calendar, he won't spare you either. Look at the goodness and severity of Jehovah on them which fell severity, but toward you goodness, if you continue in his goodness, otherwise you also shall be cut off. And they will no longer abide in unbelief. They're going to be grafted in again. That's a promise guaranteed in many of the prophets, including Ezekiel 39 and either verse 12 or 22. I can't remember. But it's in the last half of Ezekiel 39. He says, from that day and forward when he saves them, they are going to believe. Israel will. Because he is able to graft them in again, regardless of what you say. And if you were cut out of an olive tree which is wild by nature, and you were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these of the natural branches, the 12 tribes of Israel, being the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree again? For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened to Israel. So that blindness he was speaking about up here, only partial blindness has happened to Israel until the time of the Gentiles, the hourglass, the filling up of the hourglass, the time runs out. And what happens next? And so all Israel shall be saved. Don't sit here and say, well, no. Say it with me. And so every Israel shall be saved, because it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, a Zionist. Not a Romanist, a Zionist, the deliverer, that will turn away unholiness from Jacob, because this is my covenant unto them when I shall take away their sins. That's a new covenant for Israel that I keep talking about. And those of you who are against it, these Gentiles who are against this, you don't want Jehovah to take away the sins of Israel? Then that curse of unforgiveness will fall upon you. And without a doubt, these nations, after proclaiming peace, will come to fight against Israel's salvation. Because it does not fit their false narrative. Concerning the gospel, they might be enemies for you Romans' sake, but concerning the election, they are the elect, they are the beloved elect, for the patriarch's sake, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's sake. And that can never be changed. That can never be repented of. Not possible. And because you obtain mercy, O Gentile, they will also obtain mercy. But you did not afford the people of Israel mercy. This is the reason why the tribulation upon the Gentiles in Luke 21 is going to fall upon you. This is the tribulation on the Gentiles. Right here. It says so, right here. There shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, and this is until the time of the Gentiles is come to an end. So when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, this happens. There shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth. Sunoke, meaning distress, anxiety, anguish, tension, tribulation. Tribulation on the Gentiles. And I tell you, no preacher is telling you this. Nobody. There is not a soul on earth today with a preacher's license. In fact, show me the person, anyone, who has quoted Romans 11, verse 25 and 26 as many times as I did. But you can't even show me one. But I've done it hundreds, perhaps thousands of times. And if distress, anguish, and tribulation falls upon the Gentiles, with perplexity the seas and waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great glory. And then when you see these things come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws nigh. If there is tribulation upon the Gentiles, then whose redemption is he talking about? Well, of course, the redemption of Israel, as Paul wrote about in Romans 11, verse 26, verse 25 and 26. It is almost word for word, except for Paul's was more compacted, more summarized. This is more detailed. When the time of the Gentiles comes to the end, all Israel shall be saved. Your redemption draws nigh. And I don't care who you people are on BitChute, what Nazi Christian group you are a part of. You have no effect on me. You can argue with me if you want to, but the minute you start bastardizing the Jews or their Messiah or the Elohim of Israel, of course I'm going to block you. Why wouldn't I? So those of you all the way from the leadership in Russia to you idiots that are living in your mother's basement, gnashing at your teeth about the Jews, all of you can go kick rocks. I will post the truth about Israel's salvation for as long as there are channels for me to post it, and as long as the breath of life in me continues. And you can't stop me.